What's up? My name's Brian. I used to be a chef, and today I'm gonna show you my very well-tested and delicious recipe for chicken tinga. In this video, you'll learn how to properly cook and shred chicken meat in a way that doesn't make it dry, and how to cook a perfectly seasoned smoky tomato salsa to serve along with it. Then we're gonna pull everything together into a delicious chicken tinga tostada that's perfect for a weeknight dinner. This is Weeknighting. So today we're making chicken tinga, and if you haven't heard of it before, chicken tinga is a traditional Mexican restaurant dish that consists of shredded chicken sitting in a smoky, robust tomato sauce. The problem with Mexican chicken tinga, or at least as it exists in Mexican restaurants and strip malls in the United States, is that they use breast meat and it's very dry and stringy. It's essentially just cooked chicken sitting in a tomato broth, and it's not very good. Today, I'm gonna show you exactly how to avoid that ropey dryness. And it starts with 2 to 2.5 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs, or about 1,200 grams worth. To prep them for cooking, I'm gonna hit them with a liberal amount of salt on both sides. And that's like a strong 3-fingered pinch. Then I'll hit them with another strong 3-fingered pinch, or maybe a little bit more on the backside. You definitely can use breasts for this recipe if that's your truth. The problem with breast meat is that you have to cook it to a very specific temperature, about 150 to 155 F, to avoid dryness. And that's difficult to do. If you have an instant read thermometer and you want to pay extra attention to cooking your breasts super gently so they don't go over that temperature, by all means, go ahead and use those. But I like chicken thighs because they have a lot more flavor than breast meat and they're basically indestructible. So that's why I recommend them for the home cook. Once this chicken is all salted up, we're gonna throw it into a preheated 400 F oven and cook it for about 20 minutes. Now, while that chicken roasts, we're gonna make a smoky tomato sauce, or in Espanol, salsa. To make that, I'm gonna grab a half of a white onion here and give it a very rustic dice. I call this the Weeknight dice, where basically I just slice it one way, turn it 90 degrees, and then chop it into big chunks. This onion's gonna end up getting, that's not a pro way to do it. This onion's gonna end up getting pureed, so it doesn't really matter how perfectly diced it is. Once I got the onion chopped up, I'm gonna grab 3 cloves of garlic and just give those a really quick slice. No need to be perfect here. This is gonna get cooked and pureed, so we just need slightly smaller pieces of garlic so they cook faster. Next, I'm gonna grab a 3-quart saucepan and drop it down over medium heat. Once that's hot, I'm gonna add a little squiggy of oil. Then I'm gonna slide in my onions and garlic. And then I'm gonna immediately hit those with a strong pinch of salt. You'll notice that pretty much 100% of the time when I'm cooking onions, I add salt right away because this draws out the moisture, which creates steam in the pan, which helps the onions cook faster. And more importantly, it actually slows down their caramelization. For this dish in particular, we don't want super brown, dark tasting onions. So that extra bit of steam in the pan is gonna help cook the onions instead of caramelize them. Now I'm just gonna jump in here, give everything a quick stir, and let these sweat down for about 5 to 6 minutes or until they're translucent. And about 5 to 6 minutes later, the onions and garlic are fully sweat or translucent, and they're looking nice and softened. So next thing in is 25 grams of tomato paste. I'm just gonna let that sizzle up with the onions and garlic for a second and get a little bit of canned tomato flavor cooked off. And I'll give that about 2 minutes and bring it to the point where it's just starting to take on a little bit of a rusty red color. About 2 minutes later, we can see that the tomato paste is rusty red and it's kind of glazed up the bottom of the pot. So the next tomato product going in is 400 grams of fire roasted tomatoes. These are gonna bring a lot of smoky, robust, stewy tomato flavor that provide a little bit more of a cooked tomato backbone to this sauce. Now I'm gonna bring that up to a simmer real quick, and then I'm gonna grab 1 whole fresh tomato and just kind of dice that real quick into rustic chunks. Nothing too crazy here. Make sure to remove the tomato stem too. For me, the fresh tomato brings some extra moisture. It obviously brings some fresh tomato flavor, and it brings some nice bright acidity that you don't get in a cooked tomato product. Once my fire roasted and tomato paste are up to a hard simmer here, I'm gonna add in my chopped fresh tomato, or about 200 grams worth. Then I'll stir that in and let that cook for just a quick second while I grab the rest of my liquid. Liquid 1 is chicken stock, 200 grams of that goes in. Then to make it taste even more chickeny, I'm gonna grab one of my favorite ingredients of all time, better than bouillon chicken flavor, specifically roasted chicken. I'm gonna add in about 10 grams of that. By the way, BTB is not sponsoring this video. This is just a product that I happen to really like and use all the time. If you can't find it at your local grocery store, any regular chicken bouillon would totally work fine. Just be careful on the salt level. Next in, I'm gonna add in 2 Chipotle chilies in adobo with their sauce to bring some smoky, roasty flavor, and then about 1 gram of dried oregano. Not Mexican oregano. That stuff is very medicinal and delicious, but not really appropriate for this dish, in my opinion. Once everything's in, I'm just gonna jump in and stir it until it's all combined. Then I'm gonna reduce the heat to medium-low and cook for about 15 minutes until everything is nice and softened. Real quick, while that cooks, I'm gonna take a quick second to thank the people over at Made In who make this beautiful 3-quart saucier for sponsoring this video. What am I doing with my hands?
As a professional chef turned full-time home cook, I'm always on the lookout for professional quality tools that are practical for home cooking. And that's exactly what Made In's products are designed to be. They combine pro-level performance with ease of use at home. Let's take a closer look at the 3-quart saucier that I've been using for this chicken tinga. First off, the pan just looks great. It's sleek and very well designed. But for me, more importantly, it's super functional. This saucier is perfect for reducing sauces thanks to its wide cooking surface, and those curved walls on the side are ideal for stirring and whisking things in. This saucier is part of Made In's 5-ply stainless collection, just like the saute pan that you guys have seen me use before. Thanks to those 5 layers, these stainless pans heat up evenly, retain heat like crazy, and they can go from stovetop to oven up to 800 degrees. Plus, they all have this rolled rim that makes pouring sauces super easy. If you want to check out this saucier or any of other Made In stainless cookware, hit the link in my description to save on your order. These are truly great products and they get my highest recommendation. But if you don't want to take my word for it, there are over 100,000 5-star reviews backing me up. Again, the link is in the description.
Sauce is cooking. Time to check back on the chicken. At this point, it's been about 20 minutes and these things are looking nice and roasty. As you can see, we got some nice color around the edges. All the flabby chicken fat has kind of rendered out and they're cooked all the way through. Now at this point, this chicken is way too hot for us to shred apart with our tender little fingers. So in the meantime, we're gonna check back on our sauce and finish that up. At this point, the onions are super soft. The fresh tomatoes have cooked down into kind of a mushy texture, so they're super tender as well. And all of the tomato products have coalesced into a unified tomato thing. Now to finish, I'm gonna add in 15 to 20 grams of cider vinegar, about 5 to 8 grams of salt, and then a small handful of chopped cilantro stems. I'm reserving the cilantro tops to put on top of the final dish. The stems have tons of flavor though, and it's a shame to let them go to waste. They bring a ton of nice citrusy herbal flavor. They're dope. Next, I'm gonna grab a immersion blender and drop it into my sauce and just very carefully spin it to break it down into a puree. You kind of want to tilt the pot away from you a little bit and like pulse it because this can get a little bit splashy, as you can see. From here, I'm just gonna puree this for a minute or so to kind of break it down. We don't want it to be a perfectly smooth paste. This sauce should still be a little bit rustic. Of course, you could throw it in a blender. That'd be a little bit easier and faster, but you'd have to make a blender dirty, which kind of sucks. And pureeing hot liquids in a blender can be a little bit dangerous. And that looks really good. It's saucy and just a little bit loose, but not watery. That's what we're really trying to avoid. Anytime I make a sauce though, before I call it done, I'm gonna give it a taste for acid and salt. And that is really, really flavorful. You got this bright tomato acidity. The cilantro stems are beautiful. And there's just a little bit of sweetness. Salt-wise, I do think I'm gonna bump it up just a little bit more because this sauce is gonna be sitting on top of the chicken and we need it to be just a little bit more seasoned than if we were eating it as a standalone salsa. By the way, this is a fresh spoon for anybody who's out there is gonna comment being like, hey man, same spoon, yuck. It's different. Ooh, yeah. Man, that tastes so good. I'm gonna let that hang for just a quick second. Then I'm gonna go back over to my chicken here and start shredding it up. To break these down, I'm just gonna grab a thigh and start pulling it apart into little thready bits that are maybe a 1/2 inch wide. If you go too far, the chicken's gonna shred into little fine threads in the sauce, and that's gonna end up being kind of ropey and it's gonna stick to your teeth. And that is pretty unpleasant. Also, another thing I wanna mention here is when it comes to cooking your chicken thighs, don't cook them too much. I know chicken thighs are pretty indestructible and you can cook them forever and they won't dry out. That's true. But if you cook them too far, you're gonna convert all of the collagen inside of the meat into gelatin. And when you go to stir fully rendered 100% melted chicken thigh into a sauce, it just completely falls apart. And then you're left with a very mushy eating experience. We still want the meat in this sauce to have a little bit of bite. So for me, I like to cook them until they're cooked through and no longer flabby, but not fully melted and totally shreddable. By the way, this whole shredding process is definitely the most time-consuming part of this whole dish. Cooking the chicken takes like 15 minutes, the sauce maybe takes 15 minutes, and the shredding could take up to 15 minutes if you're doing it by yourself. So if you have some people around who have clean hands and want to eat chicken tinga sooner than later, have them jump in and help you out. Okay, once I've got all 8 of my chicken thighs shredded down, I'm just gonna move this over to my pureed sauce, and then I'm gonna fold it in. Don't stir this too much because that can pretty easily over shred the chicken, and like I've been saying, that's not good because the chicken won't have any texture. Also, if you were wondering, you definitely could make a 2 times batch of this and freeze half of it. The chicken thighs are super robust and there's nothing about the sauce that's gonna get weird in the freezer. Okay, once that's all stirred in, it's time to give ourselves a little taste. The chicken has perfect texture. You get a little bit of smokiness from that Chipotle chili. You get the bright acidity from the tomato. And then at the very end, you get that onion and garlic flavor that kind of ties the whole thing together. So I'm just gonna let that stay warm in the sauce while I build a tostada. First thing down is gonna be some Tinga, 5-6 ounces, spread from edge to edge. Next, I'm gonna hit this with some crunchy, fresh little gem or romaine lettuce that I've shredded. This is gonna bring some excellent moisture and texture to the top of this tostada. Then I'm gonna give the whole thing a liberal ziggy of crema. That's just sour cream and a little bit of lime. And then finally on top, we're gonna go just with a little bit more fresh cilantro. And that looks so sick. You got some crunchy tostada, some tender, stewy chicken meat, a little bit of crunchy lettuce, and then some fatty, twangy sour cream right on top. Now let's eat this thing. Oh my God, that is good.
By the way, the knife that I used in this video is a custom one that I designed for home cooks and for myself, and it's gonna be on sale in the next couple of weeks. If you wanna learn more about it, sign up for my email list and I'll let you know when it launches. No spam, I promise. Link for the email list is in the description below.